what is your name?
Freida Weinreich. Freida Gola Weinreich. My maiden name is Gola.
All right.
G-O-L-A.
And what was your date of birth?
Hmm?
Your date of birth?
Oh, this is a question.
Yeah, it's
It's okay. My date of birth is July 22nd, 24. My old lady.
Where are you originally from?
I'm coming from Lodz, Poland.
And what was it like growing up in Lodz?
What was growing up? It was, of course, we didn't know better. We were normal teenagers. I was 15 when the war started, when they were talking about the war. We did go to school. We had friends. In Lodz, Poland, it was the second largest city. And it was a very strong Jewish community. So there were a lot of I did go to public school, but the public school were only Jewish children and only girls. It was a 6-day school. So Gentiles did go Saturday. We did go Sunday to school. We went normal. I personally did not encounter too much there was a lot of anti-Semitism in Poland, but I personally did not encounter. We lived in a neighborhood where were only Jews, just janitor was a Gentile, so we were in good contact with it. But so we grew up normal children, did go to movies, did have fun, did go, but in the beginning of 39, of course, we already knew what was going on in Germany since 19... I have here dates, exactly when something happened. I found it, my granddaughter got it from the internet. In 33, already started problems in Germany. And then in about 37, I think, started in Austria when Hitler did annex Austria. At that time, I was in school, maybe in 5th grade, and our principal was from Austria. So she went back during the summer, and she happened to be our homeroom teacher too. So she went back for the summer vacation, visit her relatives, and when she came back and she told us what she saw, and she said, I hope it will not come to here. Well, we were 12, 13-year-old children. What do you think about it? And then they came.
What is like the main way that you found out about what was going on in Germany? Was it like through the radio, or was it through people going to Germany and coming back?
Well, we heard the radio. We heard he was an excellent speaker, Hitler. So we knew in beginning of 39, we already did talk about the war, and my mother, whenever we start talking about the war, my mother started to cry. So she remembered the First World War, how bad it was. But the First World War was a war between the countries. Here was a war between the countries and with the Jews. I just cannot understand. Lodz was the longest ghetto. So it was already, the Russians were about 20 kilometers away from, they still had time to kill, to liquidate the ghetto, to send us to Auschwitz.
What was like the average day in the ghetto? How was it like?
In the beginning, it was, people came in, it was very crowded. Then it started to normalize, so started to have factories. We worked, in fact, there were different factories. I worked to make straw shoes. If you ever go to Israel, to Yad Vashem, they have it. Have you been?
I was there this summer.
Yeah. If you so there is we have been there the last time 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and they have a whole display of the lodge, and they have the shoes. I made straw shoes. At that time, the German soldiers were fighting Russia, and they were in Siberia, and it was cold, and those straw shoes protected their feet. They had the other shoes. They were on top of regular shoes.
Did you have any siblings growing up?
Oh yeah, I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers. Nobody survived.
How did it make you feel, and how did it make your family feel when you knew that Poland was being invaded?
Well, we were scared. Poland was, the war was going, in 3 days they were enlarged. It was no, either, they lost the war right away. Poland was a young country. If you know history, Poland was not on the map for 100 years. Poland was divided between Austria, Russia, and Germany. And they had uprisings. I studied history at school when I was a student of history. So they got liberated in 1918 when the war ended. So they really were a country which was 21 years old.
France and Britain, the Allies, did not come to Poland's aid when they were originally invaded.
It was a blitzkrieg. You didn't have time to think. 3 days they were enlarged. So then in Warsaw took a little longer, maybe not quite 2 weeks. Then they did have a longer fight by Szczecin. This was by the entrance to the sea, to the Baltic Sea. This took a little longer. This was the war which supposedly Hitler started the war because he wanted, you see, the Polish map was, here was Germany, and here was Prussia, and here was a corridor which Poland had Danzig, Gdańsk, and Gdynia to the sea. So when Hitler said he wants to unite Prussia with Germany, this was supposed to be the excuse to start the war.
And when they did invade, how did life in Poland change?
It changed. Right away, they started, first of all, they started to limit, we couldn't get out till after 5 o'clock in the evening. Then if you couldn't walk on the sidewalk. You had to, if you saw a German, you have to get off the sidewalk. Then they started to catch people to work. They made up some works, and then they started people, some Jews, some very Orthodox Jews used to have beard. They, with a bayonet, started to cut the beard. It was slowly. Then they started to burn the synagogues. This was the frightening thing. I remember we lived very close to a synagogue, which was about 3 houses across the street. Burn it in the middle of the night. It was even more scarier at night than in daytime. And we watched burning the synagogue. They did protect the houses around. It was so frightening to see. They were the nicest 3 synagogues in Lodz. They were burned, never rebuilt. This was right in the beginning. Then they started to organize. They got Älteste der Juden. They started to make cooperatives to get a rationing food, which was very little, and you could eat it in 3 days and then not have it for the next 2 weeks. And they started to resort. You had to work. If you didn't work, you didn't get a ration.
So eventually, the Nazis came and they took you to Auschwitz. So what happens in the days?
They started liquidations. They started actions. They started selections. So we had to go down. Usually, my father passed away in 1941 from hunger. So I was left with my mother only. So usually what I did, My mother, I was afraid that she wasn't old. She was 58 years old when she died in Auschwitz. But I was afraid, so I usually she hid there somewhere. We had in the back of the apartment we had something we could hide, and I did go down. Luckily, it was dangerous too, but I was young. I still could work, so. But then it got worse and worse. There were selections very often. We didn't know what was going on. We did not have no radio. We did not even have a calendar. We don't know how we knew when a holiday was, I don't know. But we lived it without knowing anything. So we really didn't know where they sent the people. But we understood that it was not too good. So we had selections. You were safer that you were at work.
When you were being sent to Auschwitz, could you describe the experience and the conditions of how you were transported there?
Oh, this guy can describe very well. But Auschwitz was the last thing. We did stay in the ghetto till August 1944. From 1939, the ghetto was closed in May 1st, 1940. So it started when they liquidated the ghetto.
Okay, so being sent to Auschwitz.
To Auschwitz, it got so bad that we didn't get no food. The selections there were no selections. They they kept telling you, just go to they didn't tell us that we're going to Auschwitz. They said, since the war is getting closer, they fighting so they transfer us to a different ghetto, to a different place. It was so bad that we just couldn't stand any longer, so we went to the transport. We thought maybe we survive. We came to the transport. They gave us some bread, and we had to wait for a while. We took along very small things, necessities, and we went into the train in a kettle train. We were laying down like herring, one next to the other. I personally did not feel good. I was sick, I was sleeping, I was laying down. Sometimes I did get up. There were small windows you could look out, and I looked out and I said, it looks to me, since from social studies, it looks to me, I never traveled there, that we're going to Silesia, which I didn't know about Auschwitz, but it is this vicinity. So then we lay down. There was no toilet. There was a bucket. If you needed to go to the toilet, you had to use the bucket. And a whole crowd around. So finally, I happened to fall asleep, and I woke up, and the train was open. And they kept on screaming, "Raus, get out, get out." So we went out. They already have men in one side, women in the other side. And we had a neighbor with a child, with a young baby. She said, "Oh, this is my mother," so they put my mother with her. And then I said, Mengele was selecting. And then I kept on begging him, "I want to go with my mother. This is my mother. I want to go with her." He kept on looking at me. I was still able to work. So some Jewish prisoners did work by the transport. They knew where those people are going. So they just took me by both hands and they took me to the other side. And this is how I survived. I always say that those were two angels. They saved me. I don't know what he would have done. Then they we were waiting to go into a bath to get shaved. They shaved all the hair, wherever hair grows, they shaved. So it was at night. And there's some people which came before us from Lodz. Those people looked, they were already shaved their heads, and they gave you clothes. A tall one got short clothes, a short one got long. Whatever they took from some people, they gave you to wear after they got a bath. So those people they looked to me. I was before the war. I saw an asylum for crazy, and they looked to me like this with the shaved heads at middle of the night, and they told us, they started to scream that they lied to us. If we have any bread, they'll take it away, throw it to us. Then it was scary. It was so scary if you didn't know. Then we went to our room. They shaved us and have to strip. And then we had a shower, but at this shower water came. And then they gave us clothes. They gave me a skirt, a wool skirt. It was August, and it was in daytime very hot, and a velvet jacket. That's all. No underwear, no shoes. They took us to a block, and the block was about 5 people laying down, sleeping. Once a day, they took you to the restroom. The restroom were halls, and this was the first day. Then we got a soup. We stayed in line 5 people. They gave you a soup in a bowl without a spoon. So the first one did get it, and then they started screaming, "You have enough, give it." But it came to the last one, there was nothing left. Of course, the way it was, I couldn't eat anyway. So this was the day. On the second day, on the third day, they started to get us ready for a transport to go to work camp. They selected a certain amount of people, and I was included, to go to a work camp. Then we got again a bath. They gave us some clothes, different clothes. They gave me a pair of underwear, a flannel slip. It's things from people which they brought in the bag. They gave, and then they gave me a dress. And this. So we were waiting for the transport to come. So we waited all night. In daytime was very hot. In the evening was cold. So we were laying down on the ground without anything, waiting for the train. There was a German watchman which was on the top sitting and watching. So they wanted to have fun. So they threw down a blanket for 15 people. So everybody started to pull, it started to fall, so they had fun with it. Finally, the next day, they came transport from Hungary. So they from Hungary came transport to Auschwitz, so that same train took us back to Germany in a camp. So we went into the train, but while we were waiting, they gave us some bread and some cheese. So they were prisoners which worked around. They kept on telling us, "Don't eat the cheese because you will die from thirst. You won't get no water." So we didn't eat the cheese. I don't know if we ate the bread too, but they warned us that So we went on the train, and I don't remember how long it took us till we got to a camp. This was Christianstadt. This was a camp not far from Berlin. The Germans, which were traveling, watching us, they didn't know. They looked in whether we are men or women. And then they did go on vacation, so this is why they were watching the train. So we came to Christianstadt. Over there was a camp, 1,500 girls. There were 500 Czechoslovakian, 500 Hungary, and 500 Polish. We were the last ones which came, so we were the underdogs. Usually the first ones had the power. And we worked there. There were different things. People worked in munition factories. I did work. They did teach me, a group of people, how to lay bricks. I was a bricklayer. So we laid the bricks, and then we made a wall in the morning, and in the evening we had to take it apart because we went training. So we tried to make a small one, so we won't have too much to take apart. The food was meager. We got some potatoes, some bread, and we stayed in a room. It was a room, and we stayed about 10, 15 girls. I usually like down. It was one down and one up, so I usually like to be on the top. I didn't like to stay on the bottom.
Could you describe the selection process?
You know what? We always did hope that we would get out. There were not too many which committed suicide. We always hoped that we would get out, that something will happen.
Leon Bass, another Holocaust survivor, he once said, "I said human beings that had been beaten, starved, they've been deprived everything and anything that would make anyone's life livable." Do you agree with this? Did the same things pretty much happen? Did life seem like it couldn't even go on?
Life was miserable. It was so miserable. We always asked, what will happen? What will be? My father used to say, they said the Russians, they come. Russia was close to Poland. So what's going on? We could not believe what was going on. We did try to make the best what we could.
So Auschwitz had different locations. Were you on the main Auschwitz? They had Auschwitz.
No, we were just 3 days. There was, I think, Birkenau, which was longer. I don't know which one, but we were just 3 days there. As a matter of fact, I don't have a number. They sent us the numbers to the camp. They were so in a hurry. This was the end of August.
So this was towards the later end.
Auschwitz was liberated in January. So it was almost toward the end of the war. So they were so busy, they got transport from Hungary and from Poland and from Lodz mainly. So they were busy, they didn't have time.
What were the winters like?
The winters were terrible in Lodz. It was so bad that we did not have nothing to heat the house. We stayed in bed as much as we could and covered, and when you put out a hand, it froze. The food, well, this was the fault of Chaim Rumkowski, which ran the ghetto. When they did come in potatoes, he kept them on the lot, and he didn't distribute it till it got rotten. It froze. So it was the winters were very bad.
So you said that you only stayed in Auschwitz for 3 days.
3 days, yeah.
So towards the end of that, how did you leave? How were you liberated from Auschwitz?
I wasn't liberated from Auschwitz. I was sent to a camp, to Christianstadt. I was in Christianstadt. Then again, Christianstadt was a camp which different works, different things we did. Then it was... it got cold, sometimes the weather was bad, so if they couldn't bring food. So, but one time there came a truck with potatoes, and a potato fell down. So I picked it up. What I would have done with it, I don't know, probably eat it raw because there was no place where to cook it. But I picked it up, and a German saw me, and she took away the potato, made me stay up here. It was over there. This was a terrible thing too. 5 o'clock in the morning, they knocked in the door, aufstehen, Zählappeal. So we had to go out to be counted. And then we were counted before people did go to work. Sometimes they made a mistake and somebody was missing, so they gave us a punishment. So Sunday we did stay appeal all day long and didn't get no food. This was almost very often. So this potato made me stay appeal. While I was staying appeal, the leader, the one that came out and asked me my name, and she wrote it down. And about 2 weeks later, they sent away 20 girls. Supposedly, when they said Parschnitz, I thought Auschwitz. I thought maybe they sent us back to Auschwitz. But didn't care anyway, couldn't do anything about it. So they sent us to a camp, Parschnitz. This was in Czechoslovakia. Over there was not so bad. It was a camp which was a long time. Girls were there for years. It worked inside, no child appeal. Later on, I found out that this potato saved me too, because a few weeks later after that, the Allied armies came closer, so they evacuated the camp, and they marched. They walked to Bergen-Belsen, and half of the camp people died on the road. So I always said this potato saved me too. You know, Parschnitz was a camp. We worked inside. We made thread out from raw flax. I don't know if you know what it is. They made gas masks. It was almost inside work. I worked at gas masks. And over there, some girls were, which there were years, they had their clothes. Of course, they were worn out, but we came from Auschwitz. I had on a dress and a coat with a cross in the back so we couldn't run away, and a pair of wooden shoes, but I didn't have no socks, nothing. So one German asked me if I know how to knit, and I told her yes, I did. So she gave me some raw flax so I could knit something. There was one mechanic, he made me some knitting needles. He was a German. Supposedly the girl said that he helped them a lot. And so I did knit a pair of socks, whatever. And this helped me too, because it was very cold, snow, very cold.
So, which camp were you like freed from? Your final camp that you were at?
I was liberated in Parschnitz.
In Parschnitz, okay.
Yeah. The Russians liberated me.
And how did all the Jewish community feel? How did you feel when you were being liberated?
There was no Jewish community. Only a camp was there. There was no Jewish community. And the Germans said that they didn't know anything. Yeah. We 3 girls from Lodge, we picked up and we said we're going home. See, I wanted to see if anybody survived, if anybody came home. I don't remember how long it took us. It took us probably 7 days, several days. I don't know how long. I don't remember. And we went back to our home. The home was damaged. They lived in a different part of the city. But some people did come back, and they told us we came in. We didn't have to pay for traveling. They knew who we were. And so they told us that in some place there used to be a Hebrew school there. So they told us that over there is a Jewish committee and people come in there. I think it was on a Sunday we came in. And the lodge had trolleys then. I think they have trolleys now too. I don't remember. I've been there. And we went there and people came back. We stayed there overnight. And the next day, we did go to the places where we lived. So I went to my home. I found out that nobody's there, but I saw that some things what we had, it was left. My mother thought maybe we come back someday. So we had two sewing machines. So I think she put them behind the stove and closed up, and I saw that it was still closed. And then I had some books which I from school, but this was nothing that I. And I think she had a candlesticks put away there too.
Yeah.
So we came. Then I went back to the committee. Some people came. So some neighbors which used to live, he was older than me. He was quite a bit older than me. So he said, "Oh, it's the Leah she survived. She's here." So I told him, "Where does she live?" She was older than me too, but we were friendly. We traveled in different circles, but we were friendly. And if you saw somebody which survived, it was like you came back from the dead. So we wanted to meet. So finally he told me where she lived. Then we were walking in the street and I didn't know where to stay. I have to find where to stay. I met a girl which we worked in the ghetto together. Oh, she said, oh, she survived. They were twins and she survived with her mother. The twins, both twins. So she said, oh, you can come stay with us. So I said, fine. And then I said, let me go to this friend, this neighbor of ours. I walked over to the neighbor. She wasn't in. She was already married. She was liberated in January. And some other people lived there. So I didn't know anybody. She was not home. So I told them, look, tell her that I was there. Freida was there. And that's it. I didn't have an address where to give, where I'm staying. Finally, I stayed with this friend of mine. And finally, I took those two machines. What did I do with them? I left them with a neighbor too, which she survived in the ghetto. She was married, and they were left to clean up the ghetto. But toward the end, when they wanted to kill him, they ran away. And in the meantime, they survived. So I left them there, and I stayed with those friends. Then, for a while, the committee gave me some money, they gave us some bread, something to eat. And every day there come lists from Germany who survived. So every day we did go to the committee to find out who survived, who's. So then one day, Sunday, I was there, and sure enough, my Freida, she came looking for me, and I found her. So I said, oh, you have to come stay with me. So I went there to stay, and I met another girl I did not know, but we were very close friends. And she was already married, so we said, you know what, I didn't find, nobody survived my family. She didn't survive. You know what, we'll go back to Germany. So there are a lot of people, a lot of people were there from different countries, from Italy, from France, which wanted to travel home. We didn't have no papers. We had to, so we told them we are from Germany. We don't have no papers. We want to go back home to Germany. There was the one which was the supervisor of our transport, which he was Jewish, and so there were a transport which did go to Prague, to Czechoslovakia, Prague, and then from Prague you could go to Italy, to France, back home from where you were. We said we were from Germany. Okay, so we went off this train. But later on, when we came close to Prague, we asked him, what should we do? I don't want to get out from Prague. I want to go to the American side. So he said, you know what? You lay down, go to sleep, and you wake up in Pilsen. And Pilsen is the Americans. So we did. There were a few people, there were some Polish people, a few people left. We just lay down, and then we got up and we looked out, and we were in Pilsen. And the first time in my life, I saw a live American soldier, a black man. We saw black people in the movies. But the first time we looked, we saw a live black person. And we got off in Pilsen. In Pilsen, there was a camp. My friend found a brother was alive. He was in Feldafing. So we wanted to go to meet the brother in Feldafing. So we went to Feldafing. We went to Pilsen, and from Pilsen there was a transport going to Landsberg. So some people told us they already knew. Some people told us get off in Munich, and from Munich you can go to Feldafing. And so we did. We got up in Munich. We did go to Feldafing. Her brother was not there, but we found some other friends, which we knew what we worked in the ghetto. So we stayed there, but then we went back to Landsberg and we stayed in Landsberg. After a week or two, we went back to Feldafing to look for the brother, and we found the brother. He was looking for her in Bergen-Belsen. He didn't know, he looked in other camps. So then he came to Landsberg. We stayed in Landsberg. Landsberg was a displaced person camp, and it was the American side. This is where we wanted to be. Some people from there did go to Israel. Some people, of course, there was not legal. The problem was, after the war, we survived the war, but the world didn't know what to do with us.
Mm-hmm. So in your words, how do you think the Holocaust changed the world?
How it changed? I don't know. Look what is going on in other countries. They're still killing people. Look what's going on. Mm-hmm. We hoped that this would change, but it didn't change so much. It did, of course, it changed. Thank God that we got Israel, but it did not change. Look what was going on in other countries.
Currently, in society, how do you feel with like the president of Iran saying the Holocaust never happened, being a survivor of the Holocaust? How does that make you feel?
I feel that he's a big liar. I don't think that he really thinks that it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. He just says it, because how can he say that President Eisenhower, he liberated the camp, there are liberators which saw it, there are still people around, of course, I don't know how long, but there are still people around which can testify that it happened. So how can he say? He probably just lies, but he, inside himself, he probably knows that it happened. The Germans even admit that it happened. So how can he say that it didn't happen?
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I hope that this will give a lesson that it will never happen again. It's the world is not safe. Look what happens with religion. Look what happened because of religion. They kill. In Egypt now happens, and what happened in Libya. They just happen just because of religion, because you don't believe in their. Well, all believe in the same God, but they don't believe in the same messenger. That's it.